How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It is Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. Not a ton of books, but we're going to go through them one by one and let you know what I thought about them. Coming up next, stick around. All right, welcome back. So we're going to get into the big two first. We're going to start over in Marvel with Carnage issue number 3 from Ram V and Antonio. And I believe Lima is on the color as well. So this is actually a pretty decent Ram V run on Carnage. I do like it more than I like his collaborative work with Venom right now. And I think it's just because we don't have that split writing situation right now. And plus, I'm not a big fan of Brian Hitch's artwork sometimes, and I'm not a big fan of that on Venom right now. But this Carnage run, the artwork is pretty awesome. And the current theme right now with Venom and Carnage especially is this like evolution of the symbiotes. What's like the next step? Where can we go from here? Now, if you remember, Carnage got a little bit of taste of like the King in Black's power, that omnipresence, that teleportation kind of a power that he has. And Venom kind of has that now, or he did right at the end of King in Black. And so Carnage is trying to figure out, can he like combine his powers with other people, other villains that he knows, some lesser villains he can take out very easily? And can he kind of evolve himself in some kind of a way? So that's been a pretty interesting arc. Of course, he's got his potential host who's trying to appease to Carnage. He's kind of like a serial killer in a way. That's an interesting dynamic right there. And then we have the police trying to track everything down. We have our main character here who's just kind of one step behind Carnage right now, and he's got his own demons that he's battling from a previous encounter. So it's a pretty interesting run so far. I will say that I'm excited every time this book comes out. We're only 3 issues in. I like where it's going. I like what I'm seeing so far. The art is pretty cool. So if you haven't been liking Venom so much, and you still want to be in that symbiote world, I would recommend picking up Carnage from Ram V, because this is actually, I think, the better of the two. Let me know what you guys are thinking about it down below. And that was actually it for Marvel. We're going to jump over into DC. We have Nice House on the Lake, issue number 9. And I got to be honest with you, I don't really like where this book is going necessarily. We've seen this issue already. We've already seen this issue. We have our group of people. They're inside the house. They're learning the rules. They're learning the wish list system. They're learning a little bit about, how they're going to coexist with each other, and then the chaos in the outside world. Everyone's taking it out a little bit differently. Still, on issue number 9, we haven't really progressed much further. In the first few issues of this run, our characters learned a lot more quicker, right? So they were investigating the statues. They found some other houses. They found out they can basically heal themselves instantly. Like, they couldn't physically harm themselves. They could cut their arms off or whatever, and everything would be fine. And then we had like a little memory wipe situation. And so that reset the clock. It reset the plot, the narrative, everything we've learned. Everyone was just neuralized instantly. And now we're slowly relearning all those things. And I'm not entirely sure what the point of that was. Was it to extend this run 3 or 4 more issues? I don't know. I haven't figured out why that needed to happen, because everything is being relearned the way that we knew it before in just a slightly different way. And so we're kind of catching back up to like issue 4 at this point, and we're on issue number 9. And of course, we get introduced to a few more characters. Each new character has their own little spotlight in the first few pages. This is how I met Walter. He's a weird guy. He was in and out of my life here and there. He made weird references about how he's running out of time for something and he has to, take care of people. Like, that's the same story over and over and over again, which, I guess it would make sense because he's kind of trying to get these people on board early on, trying to develop these relationships. So he's going to have that similar motive for each person. We do, in this one, get a little bit of more information or a different explanation of how these different powers exist in this world, which I think is pretty cool. People realize their immortality in a different way than they did in the first issue. But again, it was kind of on accident. And right now, we're going to get maybe some more answers very quickly. There was kind of a scheme between 2 different members in this house right now onto how to kind of trick Walter a little bit. And so we see that play out towards the end. I wonder what that's going to mean going forward, what kind of things we're going to learn that we didn't know already. We're on book number 9. We haven't learned anything new since, I'd say, issue like 2 or 3, and we're on issue number 9 now. So I'm waiting for this to kind of pick up and go somewhere because, I want to see this book as it is in the beginning of every single issue. It's like a wasteland. Everybody's just kind of telling their story, how they know Walter. And I want to see like that point. Like where are we where's that point now? How did they get from current state to that point? You know, that's what's going to interest me. I'm getting kind of bored. But it's always interesting writing. It's interesting character stories. You know, the dynamic between everybody. It's always fun. It's book 9. I need it to go somewhere, though. I need to go somewhere very quickly. Let me know what you guys are thinking of Nice House on the Lake. The next DC book we read was Justice League Road to Dark Crisis, issue number 1. Joshua Williamson. We got tons of people on here. We got Jurgens, we got Adams, we got Brown, we got Johnson, we got all kinds of people in this book. And so I didn't know how I was going to take this book just because I didn't quite enjoy Justice League 75. I thought it was rushed. Nothing was earned. We've seen it all before. It was literally copy and paste from previous Crisis events. The last page was literally a rip from Infinity War, I think it was, where Bruce fell through the Doctor Strange's like staircase, and he's like, Thanos is coming. It was the exact same panel, and so I was like, man, what are they doing here? There's nothing original going on. And I do think it's kind of funny that in the beginning of this book, the very beginning of this is basically we have Nightwing and we have Superman, we have Jonathan Kent basically having a conversation about like, hey, they're missing. And they're having a conversation like, dude, they've been missing before. They're going to be fine. They're going to come back. Everything's going to be fine. But there's that little doubt in their head. Like, what if they don't? We got to still maintain the status quo, you know? So it's almost like they're in on the joke at this point, that we've seen this all before. And this is not a big deal. This isn't surprising. So the first third of this book is all about that. The next part of this book is basically just all the superheroes kind of coming to that same conclusion, and they have to maintain status quo. They got to run around. A lot of different villains are going to probably take advantage of the situation. The proper Justice League is gone, so let's take advantage of it. And then everybody kind of steps up on their own and you know, takes care of the threats as they come. So, you know, there is that. Is there anything extraordinary going on in this book so far? No. Not really. It's just everybody kind of stepping into the role. This is what it would be like if the Justice League stayed dead, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know. I didn't really care so far. So we'll see where it goes from here. This is issue number 1, Road to Dark Crisis. We'll see where it goes. Let me know how you guys are feeling about the death of the Justice League in general so far down below. And that was it for DC. We're going to hop over to a few indie books next. We're going to get the long anticipated, for some, Closet number 1 from James Tynion IV. This was actually a Substack release. I think we're on issue 2 or 3 on Substack. So a lot of us already read this issue a few months ago. It finally made it to print. I do like that they are coming to print. And just because, man, it's just nice to hold the book, you know? It was a long issue, but it's James Tynion. The thing about James Tynion is he's really interested in characters. He's really interested in like the demons inside of them. He's really interested in drama. And just kind of going into the supernatural a little bit. And he does that in here too. Of course, to me, this book is layered in metaphor. We essentially have this kind of broken home situation, this little child, mom and dad found a new place. They're moving right now. There's these demons in the closet, supposedly. The father has some demons. The mom has some demons. They're not quite treating each other right. The kid's kind of witnessing all this. And so they're packing up with the promise of wherever we're going is going to be a better place. And so we learn that story in a very interesting way. I think there's some cool dialogue between the husband, like this bartender. He took a little trip to the bar instead of doing what his errand was supposed to do as far as his errand goes. And you know, the wife doesn't appreciate it. They get into an argument, that whole thing. And so then we have this little demon that we don't really have an explanation for. Is it real? Is it not? We don't know. It's Tynion. It's going to be kind of supernatural. It's going to be all about the characters. It's going to be about drama and everything. So if you're into that kind of stuff, if you like what he's doing in other books right now, I think you're going to love this. It is fun. And I will say I've already read issue number 2 at least. And it's more of the same thing. And it's really interesting and fun. But, you know, if you're looking for a little variety, if you're reading Nice House, if you're reading Closet, if you're reading Department of Truth, if you're reading whatever else, it's all the same kind of thing. So if you're into that rhythm, if you're into that style, I mean, you're going to love Closet, so I recommend picking it up. The next image book we have is Firepower issue number 21 from Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney. And I will say this is probably one of my favorite issues since it came back. We've had lots of little battles and whatnot. The Serpent Clan, or whoever they're called, has resurrected this ultimate threat, this ultimate dragon who's just wrecking all the different cities. The different governments are trying to figure out how they're going to respond to this. And Owen and the family and everybody's trying to go around recruiting all the other masters around the world. And so we do get to meet a few of them and have some pretty interesting little conversations and little trials to get them on board. I thought It was pretty interesting. We still have our unknown warrior in the beginning kind of fighting, taking this threat head on. And those were always really cool. The art and everything in this is really nice. I do like it a lot. The paneling is fun. The colors are great. I think the characters are really interesting. I think the book's starting to go in the direction that I was hoping it would go into. I think we were in a slump. Maybe not a slump, but I was not as interested in the last 2 or 3 issues, and my interest is peaking more and more as we're progressing the story, as we're going places and building armies and stuff. But I think it's going to be somewhat predictable going forward. I would just imagine Owen's going to build up his army, and then eventually we're going to have this big showdown, and then there's going to be some casualties on both sides, and then the firepower will prevail. How many issues is this going to go? How many other threats are going to pop up between now and then? I'm not entirely sure, but I'm along for the ride. Art's great. Robert Kirkman, fell in love with him when I first started reading comics, and this book is going in the direction that I appreciate now, so obviously we're going to continue it. Firepower, pretty good read this week. Next image book. We have a lot of image books this week. We have Little Monsters, issue number 4 from Jeff Lemire, and we have Dustin Nguyen on the art. I got that cool variant cover, which I do like a lot. And so this is probably my favorite issue of Little Monsters so far. We do get, we're starting to get a little bit of an origin story for all the different kids that were introduced to in the first issue. Now we have the twins, what are they, Ronnie and Raymond, I believe. We have a little bit of an origin about how they turned. In a previous issue, we had another character, and it's always a little bit of a sad story. And but you know, this is really great. The artwork and everything in here is very, very crisp. It's like black and white, but it has splashes of color where it needs to make that accent scene, which I thought was pretty cool. The kids are starting to understand what their powers are. They're starting to understand that maybe the rules that they know they should be living by aren't exactly the truth. And they're trying to push the limits a little bit about what they've always known to be the case right now. So humanity's kind of in shambles right now. And, you know, they're all kind of exploring the world right now and seeing if they can learn some more stuff. They're being introduced to some more people, maybe people not like them. And so what's the consequence of that? Do they become their enemies? Do they become their allies? So this book was actually a lot more fun, I think, than the other books. So Little Monsters number 4, I think it was a strong add to this run, so I would recommend this one. All right, the next image book we have this week was Step by Bloody Step from Cy Spurrier, and we have Bergara on the art and Lopes on the colors, I believe. And so this is actually the conclusion of this run. And so I'm trying to take away what the actual meaning was. This book was, I think, this issue was a little bit on the nose as far as the codependency between the giant and this little child in the book. And so there's this kind of circle of life that they explore in here where there's like this magical tree kind of a thing, and a child is born from the fruit of this tree. The giant is supposed to protect this child as it grows. And then something tragic typically happens to the giant, and then that child becomes the giant, the tree produces more fruit, and then another child is born, and you just kind of rinse and repeat this whole thing. So I did like that. I don't really know what to extrapolate from that necessarily, besides just the beauty in that circle of life. There was a lot of other stuff in here, like this king that was kind of vengeful and wanted to destroy this giant and take this child for some reason. Maybe this child has some kind of mystical ability. Maybe he's trying to harness whatever that power means. And they had this big war and stuff like that in the previous issues, trying to hunt these two down. I'm not entirely sure how to wrap all that up into a nice package. Again, it's a dialogueless book, and so you have to rely on the art to tell the story. And I feel like it did a great job of that until about halfway through the book. And then all of a sudden it was almost like a time jump backwards mixed with going back to where the chaos started or where the chaos was and kind of undoing it a little bit. I got a little bit lost in about halfway through this issue. I didn't quite know how we got back to the battlefield from where we went. So a little bit confusing overall. I think it was an interesting 4-issue like experiment to see how well I could understand a book without any kind of dialogue. And I would say it was probably middle of the road for me. I didn't learn anything. I wasn't like blown away by the message in general in here, but perhaps I missed a few things. If you gained more out of that than I did, let me know down below in the comments how you took the overall story, and then how everything kind of connected, and some of the takeaways that you may have gotten. What are the lessons learned from reading this book? Not too bad. Beautiful art, obviously. Great art. I would highly recommend that. It's only 4 issues. It's not like you have to read it, but you have to kind of study the paneling and understand where or what the intent was for that page, because everything exists in this book for a reason. There's no reason to put something in there if it was just fluff, right? So everything is supposed to serve a purpose. Every panel is supposed to serve a purpose, tell part of the story and push it forward. So with that said, I got a little bit lost. It was pretty fun. Art's killer. Not a bad read, 4-issue run. I would check it out if you're just interested in that. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of Step by Bloody Step. All right, we're out of Image now. We're going to go over into Dark Horse, and this was a Comixology first original from Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo. We have Demons issue number, what is this? Issue number 3, I believe. Yep, issue number 3. It got that awesome variant cover as well. I was digging this story overall. Basically, we have these demon hunters. We have this power source called the Halo, and then we have this like demon source as well. The Halo can help produce weapons and technology for this demon hunting squad. We have this legacy of characters that has been growing up together and fighting the good fight generation after generation, slaying all these demons. And now it's kind of like the rise of the leader's child to take place in this team. And so it's just all about that and being introduced to that whole world in general. I would say the art is awesome. I love the character design. I like the monster designs. The battling is fun. The paneling is interesting. It's like black background and there's no real borders to any of the panels. So you just get this kind of like, you know, black background. They just pasted the panel on there. And sometimes I like a little bit of a border on the stuff that they do, but it really works when they have these frameless areas like this right here. I'll show you. They have this kind of thing going on where they don't need edges on their panels and it just kind of works right there. So it is what it is when it comes from the paneling perspective. But again, I like the character design and everything like that. The overall story was pretty generic. I thought it's just, you know, it's kind of run of the mill as far as the story goes, but it had some really cool human and demon elements into it. A lot of heart, a lot of soul in this book. I did like that. There's a few like traps that were set by demons and things like that. The way that this book ends is basically everybody kind of gets what they want a little bit. The heroes kind of get what they're searching for, this myth of this big source of Halo. And then these demons are kind of always present. And we get a little bit of a time jump, and it kind of ends in a way that you are being narrated to by these leaders, and you're kind of being recruited into this guild in a way. And so it definitely sets up the opportunity for a second volume. So we'll see where it goes from there. I'll probably continue getting it after that because I did like it that much. Again, the art was cool. Scott Snyder's a great writer, a little bit formulaic, and I'm still trying to understand and break down what that exactly means, but I feel it in this book and I feel it in Nocterra as well. But yeah, We Have Demons, not a bad read. If you're on Comixology, check it out. If you're not and your shop has some copies, I would say check it out. It's not a bad read at all. So let me know what you thought about We Have Demons. And then the last book we read this week is from AWA Upshot. It's called New Think 1.0, and this is actually from Harwitz and Diodato. And so this book was interesting. It was a book that first, the cover caught my attention because we have the Garden of Eden, we have Adam and Eve right there, we have the apple hanging from the tree, and it's an Apple phone or a parody of an Apple phone. And part of the charm of this book is you get to see all the different brands that were showcased in this book, and they're all slightly different than the real world brands, which I thought was pretty cool. The slide to unlock button right there is actually a snake, if you can see that. And so, of course, you know, it's just layered in irony. And yeah, so that is pretty cool. Gorgeous cover and gorgeous interiors. You know, it's Mike Diodato Jr. He's doing great. So what is the premise of this one? There is no main character, really. The main character is technology, I would say, in general. It's basically this big narration about how technology has evolved from just ones and zeros in a happy hello world, maybe being presented to the programmer or engineer on the screen, to mass production, mass adoption, and mass consumption of screens in general, and how the evolution of that has happened since like the 70s up until present day. You know, it's gone from single PCs, and they represent it as like a throne in the house. Everyone's so proud to own this thing, and it's a screen, to eventually there's a few of them in the house, to people having them in their hands and their phones, and then how they're linked together and they can kind of communicate together, and how we all spend so much time in front of our screens. And so that was basically the story. There is no villain necessarily. It's humans kind of going down this path where they're less dependent on each other and more dependent on their screens. It's about the evolution of the screen itself. And it was done in a very creative way, but it was also done in a very creepy just like dark way too. And it really makes you think about how dependent we are on all these different things. And so it says mission complete. I don't know. I want to say there was more issues of this too, but I have to check that out. Let me know if you guys know if there's more issues of New Think. It works as a one-shot, honestly. And I will say my daughter was next to me and she was on her iPad as I was reading this book, and I was about halfway through that. And I said, you need to turn that off right now and go do something else. Because it was like, it just kind of hits you in that way. It almost makes you just want to turn the TVs off for a day and just ignore your phone. So that's what's going on here. Pretty cool book. There's no real story. Like I was saying, there's no real way to spoil this. There's nothing to spoil. It's just the evolution of the screen and the dependency that humans have on it. And yeah, so New Think, it'll open your eyes for sure, I think. And so I would check this one out. It's pretty cool. It works as a one-shot. There might be more issues. I have to research that though. So not a bad read. So guys, that's what I read this week, and those are my thoughts about it. Let me know down below what your favorite books of the week were. I really appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification to be notified of future videos. We'll see you guys in the comments.